Welcome to That Stagey blog in this brand new series called Stagey Chat. In each episode, I'm going to be chatting to 3 different people from the industry, all about things that are happening within the theatre community. And this week, I chat to Lucyelle, Cliffe, Paul Vale and Kieran Brown. We chatted about Andrew Lloyd Webber and the pilot show that he put on at the Palladium earlier this week with Beverley Knight. And we also chat about the producers of Dear Evan Hanson and the Book of Mormon and how the cast and creatives found out by Twitter that the shows won't be returning until next year. That's beautiful.
I don't know. I'm muted. Good. I didn't know for a second that this was going to be filmed. I was like, it's fine. Just on a workout, sweating. I know. I've been doing lots of podcasts. So in my mind, I just went there. I'm sorry, guys.
No, it's all right. Don't worry.
You haven't been waiting too long, have you?
No.
20 minutes.
Well, Paul gave us a tour of his house.
Oh, I'm sorry. I missed that. Oh, hello. Oh, look at those candlesticks. Oh, stunning. Kieran, 8-pick fit. Hey, listen, you're doing brilliantly with that business. I'm so proud of you. I wish I could afford something so I could buy some because I love them.
You need something on your wall. Just a bit.
You do.
Dylan, you can't see that. Hang on.
I'm going to send you some.
Oh, there she is.
We've got
Marilyn.
Marilyn above the bed. Think what you will.
Amazing. Right, so thank you very much for joining Stagey Chat. So we've got Mr. Paul Vale, theatre critic with 20 years experience at the stage. And below we've got Kieran Brown and Lucyelle Cliffe, both performers from the West End. So we were all this week in the room where it happened at the Palladium for Andrew Lloyd Webber's pilot performance with Beverley Knight. So how was it for you guys? Start with Lucyelle.
Okay, well, at first I was quite anxious. This was the first time that I was going back into town since, I'd say, February, early March.
Yeah.
So I was a little bit anxious about the situation, but so excited to see what was going to happen in that theatre and what the theatre was going to look like. What was it, 2/3 capacity of what it normally is?
It's normally 6,900 and they had 700, didn't they?
Yes, 700 of us. Can you believe it, in such a huge theatre? But I was so excited to see and hear live music again, just melting my face off. And that's exactly what Beverley Knight did. She was outstanding, wasn't she, guys? She was absolutely incredible. I loved Sir Andrew Lloyd Webber's speech at the beginning. I thought that was just incredible.
Talk about that. So he came out and he gave it was about 7 or 8 minutes, a talk about I don't know.
How he feels, his passion for theatre as well.
I have to say this is a rather sad sight. I'm so grateful to you all for coming and being a sort of guinea pig like this, but the Palladium is meant to be full. It's a theatre that wants to love you, and it's sad. And I think this will amply prove why social distancing in theatre really doesn't work. It's a misery for the performers, I know, and thank you, Beverley, for being so brave as to be miserable.
You know, a lot of us forget that, yes, he does own 7 theatres in the West End currently.
Yeah.
I've done my maths, I've done my facts. And he does have a passion, and theatre began for him in panto, wasn't it? He said that his first panto he saw at the Palladium when he was 7 years of age.
Yes.
Which is obviously why he's obviously invested in that Palladium and bought it himself. But we were talking, Paul, you were saying about how you felt about Andrew Lloyd Webber and why he's being with the speech, I agree. It was very kind of heartfelt and sincere, and it came from it felt very genuine. But do we wonder why Andrew Lloyd Webber's invested in this? Does he feel an obligation to it? Does he feel a public responsibility?
There's been a lot of criticism of the support that he's been shown by theatre people. Matt Henley in The Stage reported extensively on both the speech that he gave and the performance itself. And he's been faced with criticism of supporting Lloyd Webber, mainly because of Lloyd Webber's politics. And I think it's very, very difficult for a lot of people, especially people outside of the theatre experience, to forget about Andrew Lloyd Webber's politics and how he feels. From my point of view, there are lots of people who are using the excuse that he didn't have to do it. He didn't have to do what he's doing. And I think that's very true. There are other producers out there who don't appear to be doing anything, don't appear to be moving anything forward. But there again, I think there's also an element that Lloyd Webber should have done it. And he's doing exactly what he should be doing. Not that, I don't really see him as a hero. He's made an awful lot of money through theatre, through audiences, through theatre. He has made an enormous amount of money, and he's made some very questionable political choices. And I think we have to bear in mind that what he's done, I think it's great what he's done, but I don't feel that he's a hero for doing it. He should have done it, and that's what he should have done.
Yeah,
and there are others who should be doing it too.
Yes.
Sorry.
No, the support has, like I say, the support in the room felt very obvious, and online since then. But like I say, Forest Fringe, for example, tweeted this morning saying, "Remember the time multimillionaire Andrew Lloyd Webber flew back first class from New York to vote in favour of reducing support for the most vulnerable people in the UK. No fucking hero of the industry we want to be a part of." So yeah, it's there. People are saying that.
He is not a universally liked
person.
And I think it's very difficult when you see somebody praising him as a hero. Dominic Cavendish in The Guardian is referring to him as the new Donald Woolfit. I mean, Donald Woolfit, during the war, went out and did Shakespeare, took Shakespeare to the provinces, doing all, and they're comparing it to him and how people must have felt about him. And I'm thinking there's lots of people, who probably didn't care that much for Donald Woolfit doing Shakespeare throughout the war. And there's also those who think, well, that was his job, that's how he earned money. If he didn't do that, then he wouldn't have made a living. So it's a difficult one. I certainly don't feel that bringing up comparisons like that help, especially when you consider Lloyd Webber's political past.
And for you, Kieran, so you've worked for Macintosh and Andrew Lloyd Webber. How do you feel about how they've performed and what they've done during this?
I absolutely agree with everything Paul says about we have to kind of separate his politics and leave that to the side.
Yeah.
Is he a hero? I have a lot of respect for him, a huge amount of respect for what he's doing. And because if he wasn't doing it, nothing would be happening. It really wouldn't. And I have respect for the fact also that he came on stage and he said, to his credit, Oliver Dowden is doing his best. He has a lot of things to think about. And yes, we want theatres opened as quickly as possible, but this has to be done safely. And everyone's screaming, we need theatres to be open. We get it, but these things have to, there's a process, and it has to be done properly and minimising the risk not only to the audience but to the performers and stuff as well. And if it wasn't for Andrew putting his money where his mouth is, nothing would be happening, because other wealthy known producers aren't doing anything. And I have on good authority that when it comes to the weekly Society of London Theatre meetings, someone is very much not being a team player. Everyone's kind of trying to get together and they're trying to unify themselves to think of a way forward. And someone is putting their hands up and saying, no, I'm doing this, and forget the rest of you. And that person is not Andrew Lloyd Webber. It's not his theatre company that are proving to be not team players. And so I do have a huge amount of respect for him. Is he a hero? Anyone that voted against, helping out the more vulnerable in society by flying from New York on a first-class ticket, I don't think I could ever call someone like that a hero. But I do have a lot of respect for him for what he's doing for our industry, because he's doing something, and very few others are.
And will it work? So obviously, we can talk a little bit about what we experience and how we felt going into it. So, did you feel comfortable in the Palladium yesterday as an audience?
I did. I know that Lucyelle was saying, a little bit apprehensive and tentative. I was more stressed about what I was going to wear because I don't fit into any of my nice clothes, and I knew that.
Well, I meant that as well. That as well, Kieran.
Everyone was going to be there, and I knew that person was going to be there.
These things we have to consider now.
That's what I was thinking about most. What am I going to wear? Because I'm carrying my lockdown weight, a few years worth currently. In terms of being in the theatre, it was so well organised and so well managed, and it was very clear, the one-way systems, and I was sat in the grand circle, so we weren't able to access a bar, but there was seats. They were taking orders to the seats, and it was very efficient and very quick. And actually, I preferred that to having to go and queue at a bar for the entirety of my interval.
It was basically table service, wasn't it? Like a bar or restaurant now. Yeah.
The air felt clean. It felt clean. It felt very fresh. I know it's because there were a few people there, but they talked about the fact that the theatre had been fogged, and this process kind of protects the theatre from the virus for up to 4 weeks at a time. But Andrew is going to make sure the theatre is fogged every 2 weeks, so there's another level of protection for everyone there. Hand sanitizers everywhere, everything ultra clean. I felt very safe. I felt safer there certainly than I did on my Southeastern trains home.
I mean, a big congratulations to the front of house team.
Oh, exceptional.
Because I just thought, you know what, this isn't a problem anywhere. You just think, they knew what they were doing and they knew where to send you and how it all worked. And that was great. And as you say, there was table service. It was like table service, which is fantastic.
And they're so friendly there, and they're so amenable, aren't they? And you felt for a second there, apart from seeing seats with massive crosses on them where people couldn't sit, you felt for a second like, oh, this is a little bit like before all of this.
Yeah.
It felt very much like that.
Very much so. Very much so. I mean, I spoke to somebody there yesterday who said they might as well have sold it out. They might have well got everyone here for the amount of people who were ignoring, because there were people, as it's very well documented, who were ignoring all the PPE, and I saw people without masks on. I saw people quite noticeably were tweeting about the fact they weren't wearing a mask.
Well, we can talk about that. So that was a tweet that came up by the lovely
Quentin
Letts. Who said,
I've been told 3 times that my mask isn't on correctly. You think, why do you have to be told 3 times?
Yeah, you're an adult. You're a grown-ass man. Wear your mask.
No sense, did it? It's like exactly as you say. Why should it then become the responsibility of the ushers to tell people? But that it is a good indicator of, is this something that might cause a problem in the future? Will ushers have, and especially with the one-way system, are they going to? I mean, yesterday was a very forgiving audience because we were obviously all invited. We were all there. We hadn't paid. But in the future, where people are going to be paying, where people are going to be a bit more rowdy, a bit more kind of displaced, is it going to be harder for the staff to
control that?
Yeah, and is it their responsibility? There's also
the
government guidelines today say wearing a face covering is not actually mandatory in cinemas, concert halls, and theatres. So unless they make it mandatory, people have. If it's an option, how can you govern that? How can anybody do that?
They have to make it mandatory.
Yeah.
That's how people are going to keep it on. How did you feel with the mask on for about an hour or so, and then you had a drink and then put it back on?
For me, so I've been living in Cumbria for 3 months where I've not had any contact with people and not worn a mask at all. So for me, even getting the train down to London, which was 3 hours of wearing the mask the whole way, it was uncomfortable. But I mean, I recognise and appreciate people who are doing 10-hour shifts with these things on.
Exactly.
I give credit to them. But for me, it was uncomfortable. And obviously I was sat right next to Paul and having difficulty hearing and talking to each other. And obviously when you see other people, there's that kind of like, how close can we get? Are we allowed to talk to people? So it impaired the experience a little bit for me. But obviously it is what we're calling the new norm. It's like, it's a compromise, yes. but ultimately it's a way back into what we do love. And obviously this show was fantastic. So the discomfort of having to sit and wear a mask during it, it's overridden by the fact you're seeing something and you're getting to see everybody like we did, for me anyway. How about you guys?
I think for me, I wore the mask all the way through, apart from to have a glass of wine later on. It was one of those things that, to begin with, it was really odd, but actually, after a while, I was too engrossed in the performance to actually think that I was wearing a mask. And at the end, when I got out of the theatre, it was great to take it off because you know it's hot. But actually, it's a bit like the person texting across the way from you. You kind of, if the play is good enough or if the show is good enough and you're completely absorbed, you kind of don't really notice it.
Yeah, I mean, I've been wearing a mask since about April/May, just going into Sainsbury's and going into shops because me and my husband aren't vulnerable, so we haven't requested any online shopping. We think that's for people who actually need it. So actually, we have been wearing a mask for a while, and it does take a while to get used to. But as humans, most of us are adaptable.
Yeah.
And we can say to ourselves, this is a serious thing. We need to protect ourselves. We need to protect others. Strangers in the street, you know, you've just got to take care. And that was the longest that I wore a mask for yesterday throughout the show. And occasionally it felt a little bit uncomfortable, mainly around my nose. My mouth was fine, the ears were fine. It was the nose for some reason. I was like, oh, this is a bit itchy, a bit close. But actually, you get used to it after a while and you know that you have to wear it.
Yeah, I stopped even being aware of it after a while. It started to pinch a little bit behind the ears because I think my elastic needs to be loosened ever so slightly. But in terms of bothering me that I was wearing it for the duration of the show, it really didn't. It really didn't bother me. And it bothers me more that people think that they can't wear a mask for 10 minutes when they pop into Sainsbury's. That irritates me more than wearing the mask itself. It's you just don't notice it. Apart from to lower it, to have a sip of wine.
Absolutely, it's the mask rage, and you don't want to feel that against your family and friends, do you? But there's various conversations. Oh, I've got to wear a mask now. It's the 24th. Why weren't you wearing it before? What? But anyway, that's for another conversation altogether.
I've been in Scotland. I was in Scotland for a week. I went home last week, and I was there for 8 days. And they're obviously a little bit behind in terms of easing lockdown restrictions, but they were quite ahead of the game with regards to masks being mandatory. And it took me a little bit, not by surprise necessarily, because like you, Lucyelle, I was always wearing it when I went to the supermarket. But in Scotland, everyone's wearing them, and I think I saw 2 times someone having a bit of a tantrum or kicking off or whatever because they were having to wear the mask in Tesco, but they were very much in the minority. So it's going to be very interesting here in England now that they're mandatory as of today. Yeah. And even Boris's language is starting to get a bit tougher. I think he refers to anti-vaxxers as nut jobs, and and I think they're going to be really fining people £100 for not wearing the mask in public, which is what we should have been doing a while ago anyway. And I hope that they will start to police these people and they will issue these fines. But I think in theatres, absolutely, in cinemas, they should be mandatory. I can't believe that it's not. Actually, it's bizarre.
It's said on the news this morning. They were talking to supermarket owners and people like that, and they were saying that they are advising their staff, do not confront. If somebody isn't wearing them, they are not going to be confrontational. They are there to offer them a mask. They have masks for them to buy. They have masks, temporary ones they can have, but they will not be saying you can't come in here because you're not wearing a mask.
But what's the point of any of it?
Exactly.
What's the point of any of it? Either we all do it or we forget it.
Yeah.
And on that, so the Palladium did a really good thing last night. So they were, anybody whose mask wasn't quite up to standard, they offered them a free mask, which was to standard. So, which is great, because like people have no excuse. Like, say you're told on your ticket before you come that this is going to be the way. But so we've got to talk about Beverley Knight and how commendable that was to like get on that stage, and how, I mean, you two as performers, like, how do you think she felt, like, seeing that kind of spark?
She must have felt quite nervous, obviously, because she's in a room filled with, okay, 700 people, not the usual 2,000 odd, but still, she must have had that slight heart palpitation of, oh my gosh, I'm back on stage. I'm singing my songs that she wrote herself as well with this incredible band. But also it's that, people are there now. People are in front of me. She was probably very excited, but equally very nervous. And I would be, wouldn't you, Kieran?
Yeah, I mean, we all noticed that there were a lot of seats marked with an X, which is where people were not allowed to sit. And it was, I couldn't figure out how they had spaced out everyone. There didn't seem to be any way that I could think of what they must have been thinking, the way they spaced out, because some people were sat kind of knee to shoulder, but round about us, there was no one. So for her to look out and see so many empty spaces, it must have been very odd. I mean, I'm used to it. I did Titanic in Blackpool. That was a good Saturday evening house for Titanic in Blackpool. But for someone like her, who must be used to, seeing just heads and heads and heads and heads.
Well, to go back to when you did Phantom, how would it have felt to perform Phantom to an audience like that? I
can't imagine. I can't imagine how it must look from where she was standing. But I think she was just grateful to be there, and her band also. Phenomenal musicians. A great musicianship, a great set of songs, and I think they were enjoying themselves. They were just having the times of life, and just grateful to be up there as well, to be at the invitation of Lord Andrew Lloyd Webber at his theatre for his pilot. I mean, that's a huge honour for any. It's
huge, and especially after her gig was pulled from the drive-in. Obviously, there was Kaiser Chiefs 6, the musical, and her gigs were pulled.
Yeah.
So she was probably thinking, oh, great, well, when's the next time I get to sing? And Sir Andrew gave her that call, and she must have been elated. I love that. I mean, apart from Mamma Mia, when else can you stand up, and 6 at the end for the finale, when can you stand up and have a good old dance till your feet hurt? That was incredible.
When was the last time you went to a panto?
True, very true.
A while ago, I'd say, and I haven't done panto for years. I've been in musicals during Christmas for the last however many years now. So
too busy working, darling. She's too busy working.
Hey, working in panto is exactly the same thing, and I was looking forward to that. I was like, oh, maybe I can get myself a little bit of panto.
So this is nicely on. So I think it was Michael Harrison has said that the deadline that he needs to know is the 1st of August to get any panto in shape to actually put it out this year. And already you've seen, I think, Guildford's Yvonne Theatre and today Blackpool have just announced that though they are definitely going to cancel their pantos. The Palladium, whether theirs goes ahead, I don't know. I don't think it's been announced yet. But yeah, it's an odd one, isn't it? To think, well, if that's not going to happen, then we are looking at next year for theatre. Apart from, it's also been announced that over in France, 42nd Street is going to go ahead with Stephen Mear directing. They're going from the 21st of November to the 17th of January with Cedric Neil playing Bert Barry.
That's so exciting. I'm going to go. Hello, high water. I'm jumping on the Eurostar.
Yeah, I went to see Funny Girl on the Eurostar and just went there overnight and came back the next day. So it's brilliant. But whether, I don't know, at the moment we are free to go to Paris, but if things change and they lock the borders again, is that going to be a problem? We don't know.
Well, everything that we require, everything that we need, everything that we want done, everything that Lloyd Webber was talking about, that Michael Harrison needs, all depends on a second spike.
Right.
They all come with that proviso. And I should imagine that with regard to the Kudos pantos, that there comes a point where contracts have to be signed by to make sure that they can actually get those performers, secure those performers. And of course, even if we got a date tomorrow saying, you can all open on the 1st of December, which I think has been touted as a date by somebody in the news today, that should be the date. That's when we could be opening by. If that gets decided and there's a second spike, it's all out the window anyway.
Yeah. Is it too much of a risk? It's like the drive-ins. They cancelled because it's too much of a risk in case lockdowns occurred.
Mm. On the plus side, I will say that there are pantos out there I think will go ahead.
Yeah.
but they are very small, and they are, you know, they're not the big money-making pantos, and those money-making pantos are vitally important, not just for Michael Harrison, they are vitally important for the theatres and for the theatrical ecology. And if they don't go ahead, there's a lot of theatres going to be in serious trouble, because that's the biggest money spinner they have every year.
Do you think audiences are ready to come back yet? Or do you think there's still a bit of apprehension?
Yeah.
If we look at Jesus Christ Superstar, I think they sold a third of all their tickets within the first 48 hours before the cast was even announced, and now they've just announced.
Me and my husband paid £15 to get on the priority list, because we're not a member of Open Air, so we paid £15 for it, and we've got our tickets. We're going 1st of September. Very excited. So some people, it depends how they feel at the moment. You know, if they have been in lockdown and haven't been out much. Yeah. We've been out a bit now. We've seen our family. We haven't hugged them yet. We haven't kissed our family or friends yet, which is really hard for me, like most people. But we adore theatre so much that we're going to keep that mask on throughout, and we're going to make sure that we have a damn good time, because it's an incredible show that I've missed every time it's been at Open Air, or also at the, where was it?
It was a Barbican.
Barbican. That's it, yeah. I missed it there too. So.
Oh, wow.
With the greatest respect, Gail, you will not be seeing that show that you've missed.
This is a problem.
This is
the issue that I have.
It's a concert version, isn't it? Yes.
It's a concert version, and I have a deep dislike of concert versions of musical theatre, because I don't feel that musical theatre is about just the songs and just the music. There is so much more that goes on in musical theatre, choreography, design, and that is part of the package. Mm-hmm. So you're not missing the production you've been missing for the last 3 times. You're going to see a concert version of that. And to be honest, I thought, whilst obviously they've got to make their money, and let's face it, it's going to be they've sold out so quickly because it's a socially distanced. Presumably, it's a socially distanced.
It is. Yeah.
Presumably half their seats.
More than that, they've gone down from 1,250 down to 390.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But they have added, so they're doing 9 performances a week to try and make it economically viable.
Sure.
Within that, they're going to be double casting the roles of Jesus, Judas, and Mary.
Mary, yeah.
So within that, you've got, I mean, you won't know yet. You've already booked your ticket, so you won't know who you're going to get to see because they haven't released a schedule.
No, but I'm not that person. I just want to see someone do it. So
yeah. Well, people do have their favourites. I mean,
yeah.
And they've all done it before, and they've all done it really, really well. Like I say, I think the only difference that I noticed was, so Herod had been played by Sam Buttery and Peter Caulfield before in very elaborate performances, and now they've got Shaq Taylor. I don't know if he covered it before or not, but
I presume so. I know he did Les Mis after I did it, because I recognise his face. Yeah.
But it is a beautiful show, and like Paul said, whether it's compromised, because obviously part of the reason it won an Olivier was down to Drew McOnie's choreography, and obviously that has been taken away. But that said, it's a beautiful score, and it's an incredible band, and they are incredible artists who they've got back. Like Declan Bennett's performance was incredible when I first saw it. So it's like you say, it will melt your face off.
As long as they do that, I don't care, and it's a night out. So
yeah. Exactly.
I hope the weather's good.
I'm going. Brolly in hand. I'm ready for it. Come on. We're English. There's always going to be rain.
Right. Shall we move on? So the other news this week, we're still talking about producers. It's the handling of shows like Dear Evan Hanson and Mormon, which both announced that their shows won't be retained until next year. Unfortunately, it seemed they informed the press before informing the cast. I mean, how does this happen? Like, I speculate maybe it's because shows like that have teams of producers. They have American producers and English producers. Maybe the left hand's not telling the right hand what they're doing. and something slipped. I don't know, but I don't think producers have gone out of their way to inform the press before the cast. But something has gone awry, and this has happened. Anybody else know or speculate how this happened?
It's interesting that both of these shows are hosted in theatres owned by a certain producer, and for that to happen once,
it's Macintosh. It is
for that to happen once is bad enough. For it to happen twice is just a bit unforgivable because the backlash that they experienced when the Evan Hanson news leaked out should have been enough to say to them, look, this kind of isn't cool. You shouldn't treat people like that. And especially a show that deals with mental health issues and things. They were not thinking about the mental health and well-being of their company when that news was released. So for that to happen to the Book of Mormon company, and I don't know, I know that obviously Cam Max are co-producers of Dear Evan Hanson. I don't know if they are from Mormon or not, or if he has any hand in the management of that show. I'm not sure, but
yeah, I mean, it's
either way,
but it's Sonia Friedman production,
right?
But like I say,
regardless, it shouldn't have happened. It's terrible. It's really terrible. It's so disrespectful, and it's highly likely that the company didn't expect the shows to be going back. But anyway, this year, a lot of people weren't shocked, but they were more shocked and upset about the way that they found out, and that
they would like to be told. They deserve
not on
to be
Twitter.
told. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And it breaks my heart because everything that everyone's been through since March with lockdown and facing this new normal that we're part of now, it's been horrendous for everyone. People have lost family members, friends. It's been horrific. So for them, whoever they are, to do that is absolutely heartbreaking and unforgivable. And my heart goes out to every single member of every single department of both of those shows. And I know a lot of them, so I've sent them a message and just said, I'm so sorry. This is horrendous. I'm sending you so much love.
I would agree with both of you. It's a terrible way to go about it, isn't it? It's a seriously bad way. One of the things I find weird is that the theatre review was apologising for commenting on this. And I'm just thinking, well, it's not your place to apologise. If the producers let the cat out of the bag, whether it was gossip, that it got through, whatever. If the news had been untrue, then yes, they need to apologise. But the news isn't untrue. All that's happened is the producers have gone about it in a very, very bad way. And that's their fault solely, not the people breaking the news.
Yeah, so this is in particular weird. So Dear Evan Hanson was announced by What's on Stage on Monday afternoon, and then within an hour, other publications, in particular London Theatre 1, commented on it as well. But like I say, it was What's on Stage who commented on it first, and then they were just adding to that. And then the next day was when they then announced about Book of Mormon. And people came for them saying, were they being sensitive in the way that they were relaying the information? Did they do it? Were they trying to be quick off the mark and get in there before anybody else to try and effectively have a scoop? These were the accusations that London Theatre Reviews was facing, and they took to Twitter they apologised for any upset that they had caused by commenting on it, but in a kind of roundabout way, they kind of then pushed it back on the producers and say, well, ultimately it's their fault for not handling it in the first place, rather than acknowledging their responsibility and their play in it. But
I think it makes a difference how something is said.
Yes.
And how something is put across.
Yeah.
So there should have been a level of sensitivity or something.
I, as a blog, I have a responsibility and an awareness about anything. So, for example, with the drive shows that the 6 got cancelled, I was aware of that on the morning, and I didn't comment on or report on it until the Guardian officially put the information out. And then my first instinct was to contact 3 of the cast who I know personally to check in with them and see if they were okay, and just to check that they had been told. And in that case, all of the creators and cast of 6 were told prior to the Guardian releasing the information. But like it was an hour or so before, and they didn't realise that information was going to be coming out so quickly. So I think this as well, when producers do have to give this bad news to the casting creative, they should also recognise a responsibility on how to tell the cast when this information is going to come out, how possibly it's going to be relayed, so at least people are prepared for that. Like I say, the cast members weren't expecting The Guardian to release that information an hour later. They were still digesting it themselves.
Absolutely.
What I will say is, playing devil's advocate slightly, it is possible that there was an embargo on the press release.
Yeah.
And if there was an embargo, if an embargo had been broken, if, for instance, you say you are not to report this until such day, and we get those in press, we get those all the time, you're not allowed to do it then till then. Hello? Sorry, I lost you suddenly. Then, and if you ignore that embargo and you just send a press release out, then yes, it's a possibility that they were going to tell people, but it became too late because somebody broke the embargo. So I don't know, but I in the press release.
We found out Love Never Dies. We found out on the Thursday evening via a tweet or something on a news website that we were going to be replaced by One Man, Two Governors, which was transferring from the National. And we found out that because someone at the Nationals team had leaked the information to a newspaper, and everyone was knives were out for Love Never Dies from the get-go. So we found out online, and then the following day, Andrew and Andre from RUG came in to say, yeah, unfortunately it's true. We have been in negotiations to leave the theatre, but we were a couple of weeks away from making final decisions. But now this news is out, it's out, and yeah, it's happening. It has to happen. We're sorry you found out that way, but it wasn't on us. It was someone else's team that was responsible, and we've had words, and that was a decent way of dealing with it. But sometimes, like you say, Paul, these things are sometimes out of the producer's control. I personally think it's unlikely in this instance, but I agree it's not always something that they do have control over. But even if there had been discussions, because these decisions weren't just made overnight, they've obviously been talking about them for a number of days. So the very least that they could have done is say, look, we are going to be having a discussion about when we're going to bring the show back, but just hang fire, and we'll let you know as soon as we have a decision. But
sure.
At no point was any of this communicated to any of the company, and then finding out Twitter, it's tacky.
I suppose the ideal is to say, you could say to producers, right, we're going to tell the cast and crew first, and then we're going to tell the papers. And of course, then you're up against people tweeting about it. Then some more people know about it.
Yeah.
So it becomes
control of that, how the information gets relayed.
It's a very difficult one to balance, but it's been done in the wrong way. So,
in reaction to these incidents, where casts have then taken to Twitter to then slag off the producers effectively, how do you feel about that? Because obviously you're still employed by them, and you're kind of putting them in disrepute. Yes, you might not agree with the way you're being treated, but is it appropriate to then take your anger to Twitter? In a way that
don't bite the hand that feeds you. I've learned that lesson. I've learned that lesson myself. I'll shout at the government until I have no voice left, because I can, and because it's a responsibility. But not be careful. You should just be careful, because you don't know. You're going to be in an audition room with those people at some point as a jobbing actor or crew or anything.
And it's a shame to kind of have to feel like that you don't have a voice, because so many people do say how they feel on a daily basis on Twitter, on Facebook, on Instagram. I'm not that person, 100%. If I've got a gripe with something or a situation, I'll tell my husband, I'll tell my friends, my family.
Yeah.
I wouldn't post it socially, because it's none of a lot of people's businesses. Do you know what I mean? But that's my makeup. That's my personal preference. Is if I have nothing nice to say about something, it's not going to be aired publicly, but that's me. Whereas other people have found a lot of solace in Twitter recently, haven't they? With everything that's been going on.
And if there's an official grievance, sorry, carry on.
No, carry on, that's fine.
I was going to say, if there's an official grievance, go to Equity. If you feel that you have a thing,
This
go
is a very
to your
strong-
union, because
yeah,
that's
this is
their
a strong point. It's like these people who are then criticizing Twitter. Well, did you email the producer? Did you email your agent first to tell them you were angry rather than taking to Twitter? Yeah, it's an interesting one.
Well, I'm not going to slander someone who has done that, because
No.
that's how they felt.
Yeah.
And that's their, yes, you're right. It's like, don't bite the hand that feeds you, Kieran, 100%. But if you feel so passionate about that, and you have been on Twitter every single day saying how you feel since lockdown, since before that, that's who you are. I'm not going to slander them, because that's their choice. They've made that choice to do that.
But even within this, does it undermine the producers? If so on day one of any rehearsal, you're told by producers, be careful what you say on social media.
/ don't mention you're in that show, because the cast hasn't been released yet. So
they're very kind of on it when it comes to that. But are they undermining themselves by not respecting the same policy? If
There's a definite power, unbalanced power relationship going on, and unfortunately, producers, they do hold all the cards. They can tell us on Twitter that we don't have jobs, but we can't say that we're going, that we're off the show that week on holiday. It's kind of, there needs to be a bit of a redress of power, and partly comes from being part of a strong union, which is only strong if people are members of it. At the moment, I'm a huge supporter of equity. I believe very strongly in the union, but unfortunately, they don't have the power that they should have, that they have in America, because not enough performers are members. There is only strength in numbers. A lot of people feel very aggrieved by decisions that equity has made over the years. Things that happened, 15, 20 years ago. I was done out of money, for a cast recording because equity agreed to this deal. I'll never join the union again. Cutting off the nose to spite the face kind of attitude. And I think this entire Corona episode in this business, I think, should be an eye-opener, and I think that everyone should really consider joining the union and using our voices in a more constructive and effective way. And I dare say that's more constructive than social media, than shouting about it in social media. Join the union and vote for the change and help shape the change that needs to happen, because something does need to change.
Absolutely. Do you think a producer has seen those tweets or those mentions, seeing a cast member or a wardrobe member or technician being aggrieved? Are they going to think, oh, wow, I've really hurt them, I've really upset them, I feel bad, I'm going to do something about it? Or go through the right channels and equity actually put something in place that producers, etc., can actually adhere to?
Yeah.
Amazing. Well, thank you very much, guys. That's been incredible.
Thank you.
Right.
Have a lovely day, everyone.
You too.
Take care of yourselves.
Take care.
Lots of
See you
love.
soon.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.